the 12th of August, 2022. I went through my phone book and I was scrolling down, and the time had come to humble myself. So it was not a decision that could be made by many people. It was a decision that only I could make. No amount of consultation would get me out of the situation I was in. So the phone rang, one ring, two rings, and I'm like, should I disconnect or do I leave it to ring? It rang and then it picked it up. The other side was silent, and then I said, Madam Governor, I'm just calling to say congratulations. It was nice competing against you. I wish you all the best as you serve the people of Machakos. And I disconnected the phone, and my heart just, and many of you might be asking, how did I get to that point? So let me take you back a little bit. I've been very lucky in my life. Extremely fortunate, one would say. My corporate career was more like when Moses, and I hope my wife I've got the right bit of the Bible, when Moses would hit the sea and it parted. That's how my corporate career was. I was promoted in my time at Safaricom probably 5 or 6 times. I started off as a legal intern and ended up as a corporate affairs director. And it was in the course of that journey that I sort of discovered myself and the things that I'm good at. And when I was being interviewed, and by the way, today is the celebration of the anniversary of the death of one of my best friends and mentors, the late Bob Colimo. So when Bob and Susan Giduku, who was interviewing me at the time for that position that I held, they asked me, what do you expect to be doing in 5 years? And this was sometime in 2011. I said, I want to be in the government. And that's not the answer they were expecting. They were expecting, I want to be sitting where you are. I want to be, somewhere in Vodafone Group. I want to be somewhere. But I was very clear in my mind at that point in time that I was only going to dedicate my life to profit shareholders, directors, for a limited period. Because that life, for me, lacked purpose. When you hit your targets, all you get the next day is a stretch number. Bring more money. So I knew that I would do my tour of duty. But at some point, my heart was calling to public service. And I didn't know how I was going to get there. I had no idea how this door would open. But like my corporate career, I knew somewhere God would open a path for me. For those who have worked with me, or those who have known me in my corporate career and in the public service, I'm the person they call to move immovable objects. When there is a problem that needs a solution, delicate, surgical, precise, people would say, look for Waita. And I was looked for. And I took myself there. you guys know State House timing in that era. But anyway, to cut a long story short, I was asked to start work the next morning. I did that tour of duty for 7 years. Very rewarding 7 years. For 7 years, my job was very simple. Cut through the noise, cut through the bureaucracy, and help me to get some things done. And I had a very finite list of things that were on that. Roads, a few infrastructure projects, a few people that needed to be moved from place to place. Some who are immovable, but we moved them. And I started understanding in a very profound manner what power means in an African country, what power means in the Kenyan context, and what power means when you don't have it. So if you come from a community that is not in the government in the shareholder sense, what you see are just the bare minimums that government must do constitutionally to keep you afloat as that part of the country. You get 1 or 2 roads, some of your people will be picked and given a few appointments. But the lion's share, because I was at the table when the cake is being cut, and I understood what it means to own the government, for the owners of the government. I worked for the owners of the government. I was not an owner, and I never confused those two roles. I was always an employee, an advisor, somebody, a conscience, a second opinion. And opinions can be sought, they can be listened to, they can be ignored. But it is the discretion of the sovereign. But for me, the lesson was, so these fringe communities, and I come from one such fringe community, because everybody comes from somewhere. And this is a lesson you quickly learn when you're in government. You're not born in Nairobi and you're a Nairobian. No. What is your second name? And people would say, how is it that this Mkamba is where he is? Because I didn't talk much. I let my actions speak for themselves. And it was its own intrigue, which is the subject of another engage, maybe another day. The life and times and the battles that came with that job. Suffice to say, what does not kill you only makes you stronger. But the more I went to the ground, the more I realized, when I go to my farm to look at my cows, when I go inevitably for Harambe, for the church, for the school, when you go for funerals at home, the roads are bad, or the few that are there, only main ones. The people are poor. And it's a poverty that makes you want to shed tears. And they're poor in the minds, poor financially. The only thing they have keeping them going are the number of churches that are more than schools, of which we always have to raise money for. There's always a new church being built. Not a bad thing, but when you juxtapose it against poverty, when you juxtapose it against development, when you think that these resources should go to early education for children to actually get a chance in life, that the kids in Yatta will be able to compete with a child in Langata, it's not possible. It simply isn't. I look at my son, say, this is a child of privilege. What country will he live in if all the people around him have nothing? I hate politics, and I hate politics to my bone. But I couldn't see another way. I decided I'm not going to be the guys behind the scenes. I want to be on the chessboard. I want to be the man in the arena. I want to be the person that can actually tell people that it is possible for you to take money that belongs to the public and utilize it for the purpose for which it was intended. Because it's not hard. It just simply takes integrity. It takes people who with a sense of empathy for what they see. So one day in October 2021, I gathered the courage. And I told my boss, sir, you're retiring. He says, yes. I want to just ask you, what do you think I'm interested in going for a seat? And he said, you want to be in the other government, you want to be in the next government. You're looking for a job in the next government. He says, no, sir. I want to go stand for elective office. So usually he was multitasking, and he stopped everything he was doing, looked at me, and started laughing. And that's the laugh. You know how it goes. And he says, Waita, you think this is hii ni kama ile kazi mumezoea hapa, where you wake up and you tell people to do things and they do them. Do you know politics really? I said, no, sir, I don't, but that's why I'm here. Just to ask your opinion. Anyway, he says, look, if you're serious about it, I will advise you to do a couple of things. And he told me, go think about these 3 things and go talk to these people. I went, I talked to my mother. My mom looked at me as if she was waiting when this day would come. She was dreading it. She had been dreading it since my late father probably had told her exactly the same thing. And she looked at me and she said, are you serious? You know what they're going to say. You know what they're going to say. I said, Mom, I know what they're going to say. And you still want to do it? I said, yes. She says, why? She says, because that's my heart. My path to self-actualization. I can't run away from myself. She says, are you really sure? She says, yes, I am, Mom. She says, okay, if you think you're going to do it, then you go ahead. The next consultation was not as easy. So, without naming names, my missus, she was, I think, like my mom, she had seen this thing like a thunderstorm coming from far and hoping that the wind would blow it in a different direction. But unfortunately, it blew it right to our doorstep. It took some convincing. I still think we still have some work to do. But she said, look, you have my support. Do what you feel is necessary. You have my support. The last consultation was with the de facto political leader of my community. I took myself to see him. I had done this trip many times, but on different missions. But this time it was different because what he was going to say actually mattered. And I found a way of broaching the subject because I knew where his mind and his body language and his actions had been. But I told him, sir, Your Excellency, this is my wish. I would be happy if I have your blessings to compete for this role up to whatever level the people will decide. Without even thinking about it, he said, Waita, you know, when we're in office, I will make you this, and that. So you stay out of this thing. Why do you want to go for it? Stay out of this thing. And I made the decision. I said, look, I've heard you. I respect what you're saying. I wish you could reconsider. I feel I am better than your best option. Not because I'm a better politician, but I will do more for the people of Machakos. He respectfully said, look, Waita, you do what you have to do. We'll keep talking. I stood, and some months passed. December, I called a man who has been a mentor to me, and he was in the US, so I think I woke him up, must have been 3 a.m., and he figured, if this guy has called me, it must be something important. I said, Ken, I need your advice. I want to stand. He said, want to stand for what? He says, Governor of Machakos. Oh, very well. When do we start campaigning? I said, when you get back, because I would like you to chair my campaign committee. He says, no problem. I'm back in Nairobi. Let's meet on Tuesday. I'll organize my thoughts, and we get going. In that one phone call, he killed any doubts that I had. And he reinforced me in a way that, I didn't think that was possible. And on the 8th of February, I looked at State House for the last time, and I said, Kwaheri. The boss asked me, are you sure? Do you want us to take this letter and burn it? Or do you really? I said, Mheshimiwa Rais, nimefika hapa, nimeamua. Na kama ni mbaya, ni mbaya. Said, sawa. Said, tutaonana after nominations. So from the 8th of February, let me fast forward because I can see Bosire looking at me badly now. From the 8th of February till the night of the 8th of August, 2022, I visited 40 wards. I went to roughly 480 meetings. I would do an average of 6 meetings a day. I met women, madmen in the market. I met teachers, I met doctors, I met nurses, I met volunteers, I met matatu conductors, I met mira sellers, mogoka vendors, farmers. I did matatu, I did, sex workers of Machakos Town Union. Men of the cloth, magicians. In Ukambani, magic is our specialty. And I was humbled. Let me tell you, I was humbled. So, huyu haongei Kikamba. Born in Nairobi, what is he coming to do here? He's not one of ours. Look at his ears. Look at his height. Na anashindanga na ng'ombe. Huyo ni Masai. Ona shoga huyo. Hana bibi, hana mtoto. So, let me tell you how I was subjected to some of the most humiliating attacks by people who should know better. In public rallies, they would stand and they'll say, that boy who has come here, he's come from Nairobi, it's Uhuru Kenyatta's project, and He's like Alfred because he has a wife from Muranga. And that time Lillian was trending. And, I would go home and I would be in like 15 chat groups and I would see the insults, very personal. I would see photos of my family and people saying, look, does it doesn't look like his son doesn't look like him. I wonder where he came from. And it would go on every day for 6 months. I'm not easy to intimidate. So they tried everything. I don't wear my Christianity on my sleeve, but God walks with me everywhere. And I put him to the test because I immersed myself in a situation where I literally had no control. My spirit was so low. I would go home, my family would talk to me. I try to recharge, I can't recharge. Because every time I look at these messages, every time I go to the ground, I would find that I needed something. And then there was this one day where we got the news that the coalition leader for our coalition, by there I went and bought my own party because I said I'm not going to nominations with anybody. So I went and took a party that my competitor had stood on the previous election. I said, let's go for that one because she made it popular. Let's take it so that we use it and we don't have a very steep learning curve of introducing it to the people. So I took that party. I did my nominations and nominated myself. And then joined the coalition. Maybe I should have thought about it a bit harder. But I joined the coalition. I joined the coalition because my beliefs don't vary from time to time. They are constant. And I joined that coalition because it's a coalition where, where we were. And I was told Raila is coming to Machakos and he's coming to endorse your competitor. And I said, good gracious. After all these meetings, after all this humbling, begging people for money to support my campaign, after waking up, these guys are going to destroy me on one day? I said, no. I prayed. And I went to Machakos. Don't ask me how. I got into a function to which I was obviously not invited. And I was told that this is a meeting of coalition leaders. I said, by the way, my party, Chama cha Uzalendo, I'm the party leader. So make a seat for me, please. And I sat. I said, whatever is being said, let us discuss because we are the guys who are making your people come out and vote for you. They tried that. And they said, no, we want to have special prayers for this man. So maybe you can excuse us, go to the dais and wait. We were in a holding room at that time. What I didn't know is what had been planned to happen between the holding room and the dais. And they didn't want Raila to witness it. So as I was getting out, one of my bodyguards came and told me, Nikubaya, nishike mkono. I said, kwa nini? Boss Nikubaya. I said, okay, sawa. So I held his hand and he pulled me and we were going towards the dais. And then they started throwing things at me. This was a meeting of pastors. 3,000 pastors. They started throwing stones. I got to the dais. They removed my chair. Then they started saying, no, you are not invited here. Kwenda kabisa. So they brought goons. We had people who had all this information a day or so in advance. So out of the 3,000 pastors, I had a few men of God of my own. But in all that time, This is when I knew God was walking with me on this journey. Because two things happened. One is none of those chairs hit me. And the people who had been there, all the policemen, the APs, they came and formed a ring around me. And the chief, the local chief told me, usijaribu kusimama, kaa hapo, paka hii function ianze, don't stand. I said, no, let me go and leave these people to have their fun. I said, no, this is not your opinion, this is ours, we want you here. So I sat. The embarrassment ended. The big men came. They came and sat, and they were quite shocked that I was seated where I was. Then the second thing happened. There were different types of pastors there. The ones with very long coats and pointy shoes. And you know, as Wakambas, when we wear pointy shoes, we wear pointy shoes. And they started praying. And each guy would pray, and they would pray for my competitor and pray for the downfall of all her enemies. And they kept praying. But then the chief guest came, and he was giving now the mother of all prayers. And this man is a reverend in the AIC. And he went onto the mic and he said, in the book of Timothy, God tells us to pray for all leaders. And I want to pray for you, Nzioka, that your journey into politics is good, that you have a fair chance. And the crowd just went ballistic because this guy had gone off script completely. I've never met this man in my life. But he refused to say a prayer against me. I said, God is good. And that night, when I was home reflecting on the flying chairs and everything, I found his number and I called him. And I said, Reverend, I just want to say thank you, because you could have really taken that opportunity to dismantle me, and you didn't. And I just want to thank God for you. Suffice to say that I went on to face the election. On the 8th, we voted. The votes were counted. And as they say, kura ziku tosha. It was too late by then, because they had weaponized part of the system. And it was quite hard. For anyone who knows how villages work, you can't operate without the chief. And this politics is local. So politics is not huku. Politics is huku. And one word from influencers at the local level, it counts for a lot. Anyway, I was told it's politics, isn't it? It's politics, and all is fair in love and war. So I went and asked for my votes, and I asked for my votes without doing these things that, we are told you must do in politics. Why? Because I knew if I get this seat, number one, I'll just bring dignity to a community that has been cannon fodder for politics for years. I would help them. I understood. Many people have never understood the issue of inclusion in Kenya. They've never understood it. You can only understand what it means to be out of government when you see how resources are distributed. The inequities that come with you being far from the center last for generations. I was determined to be the beginning of that break point. So I said, let's do this politics. Is this the route? This is the route? Let's do it. Anyway, I had to make that phone call to my competitor and concede. It was tough. It was heart-wrenching. It was, I can't describe it. When you have fought a battle with everything you have, literally everything you have, where people have sacrificed, the money they are giving you to campaign, they didn't pick it from trees. it was quite something for me. I didn't know what to tell them because all of them were waiting. They said, this thing, hii kitu ni yako. And you know, in politics, if you listen to that stuff, after the election, I learned now, Nzioka, you're very naive. Don't spend so much time campaigning. Understand how votes are counted. Ladies and gentlemen, if you care about your future, the comfort that you have in your homes, the contention of being in the middle class where everything is so nice, and if you're super wealthy, you don't care about the politics anyway because you live above it. You must ask yourself, if you have children, if your children are old, maybe you're okay, but my son is 9 years old. I have to worry about what kind of future he's going to have. Because I must be his Moses. Because there are people who are Moses for me. I must do the same for him. And I must do the same for the children in the village who can get nothing. I said, okay. I didn't talk to anybody in the whole of August. I talked to nobody. But 130,000 votes. 6 times Nyayo Stadium. From every corner of Machakos, people who said I didn't speak Kikamba. They didn't care. They didn't care that I had big ears like a Maasai. They didn't care that I was born and bred in Nairobi. What they saw was the substance that I had in my head. They listened to me. They could see a future. I feel bad that I let them down, but I don't feel bad that I tried. Just try. Thank you.